Salary cap, guys. Let me earmark it. Let's do a little salary cap talk. Listen, you listen across the interwebs, and there's people that think, oh, crap, we're screwed. We have no cap space. There's others that think you can go out and sign every free agent under the moon. And the reality is the truth is always in between the two extremes. All right. So what we've done here, just talking about cap space, you can find this article we put together earlier on Patreon, just roster decisions. If you go on, it breaks down everybody. It talks about Rashan Gary's, positives and negatives of keeping him, his cap hit if you keep him, pre-June 1 cut, post-June 1 cut, all that. It goes on to show Elgton Jenkins, the same thing. So you guys can check that in our Patreon group, patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access. But let's key in on the cap hits here. First of all, over the cap, Jacob, they currently have our salary cap space at $2.6 million over the cap, okay? And people see that and they freak out. Guys, they're going to get way under that number if they want to. If they want to sign somebody, they can get way under that number. What do I mean by that? And let me just cross-check, first of all. Cap space, according to Spot Track, is minus $4.3 million in cap, okay? So you're seeing over the cap saying 2.6 over. You're seeing Spot Track say 4.3 over. I always tell people, any of those numbers you pick, be willing to fudge it $5 million either way, okay? Because there's so much, fine detail that you can kind of work out. Don't get caught up in counting every single cent. However, the cap went up again. Everything's factored in. We got to free up. Let's say it's $5 million to get under the cap, just to play it safe. Well, you also want $7 to $10 million of operating funds as well, okay? Those numbers do include the projected draft class this year as well. Some people say that doesn't include the draft class. That actually includes the draft class as it sits right now. So, with that being said, let me show you how we could save some money real quick here, Jacob. This is what we were talking about earlier, all right? So you'll see the cap hits. This is for 2026. Jordan Love, $36.1 million. Dead cap, $98.4. Obviously, no money to be saved. What you're looking for is a lower dead cap number than the cap hit itself. Rashan Gary is the first example of that. $28 million against the cap, $17 million in dead cap. What does that mean? You could cut Rashan Gary pre-June 1, move on from him, trade him, whatever you want to do, and you can free up $11 million just like that, and you're automatically under the cap by $5 million. One move. Now, that doesn't include post-June 1. If you go post-June 1 for Rashan Gary, you're actually freeing up $19.5 million this year. However, keep in mind, you've got to carry his current cap charge of $28 million until June 1. So you don't have, you don't have access to those funds right then. You're going to have to shave cap off somewhere else if you go post-June 1, if that makes sense. So Rashan Gary, that's why we talked about you could potentially cut him and free up a lot of cap space. Aaron Banks, a little bit different, $24.7 million against the cap. You can cut him this year, pre-June 1, and free up $4 million, $4.5 million, well, $4.4 million what you could save. If you go post-June 1 cut, you can free up, let me find him here, post-June 1 cut, $18 million. So you can make a decision on Rashan Gary to go pre-June 1 cut and free up the money to get under the cap the way you need to be, and then maybe go post-June 1 cut with Aaron Banks and plan on having an extra $18 million. And again, you just got to get under the cap by the new league calendar year, right? That's essentially how it works. And there's a little bit of grace there as well as you operate within those parameters. Elgton Jenkins, another one, Jacob, $24.3 million. He's 4.8 dead cap. You can free up right at $20 million by just cutting Elgton Jenkins. Now, it's the last year of his contract, so there's no post-June 1 parameters there. There's no way to benefit there. If you cut him outright, you free up $20 million. What I'd like to see the Packers do personally, cut Elgton Jenkins, let him test the market, tell him to come back with the best offer. If he comes back with $10 million or less, match that offer with a little bit more guaranteed money and let him play another year in Green Bay is what I would do. Now, he may be a little butthurt over how the whole thing unfolded, right? He held out of camp or held into camp, however you want to say it, and wanted a new contract. They didn't give it to him. So he may go, nope, I'm not interested in signing in Green Bay. That could be the case. You got to be prepared for that, right? But to me, of all the players we just talked about, Jacob, the one that makes the most sense is Elgton Jenkins. He's 31 years old. He's had ACL injury already and surgery. And then last year he had the injury. I would get him off the books, let him test the market. And if he comes back with a good team-friendly deal and there's no hard feelings, then you can bring him back. And on kind of a, hey, you play this many games, you get paid your full amount of money, as opposed to, the latter. So,
yeah, I agree. Like Natso Koo says, I like Jenkins. He's been with us forever, but it's time to move on. I know Clayton's the same way. I'm a very loyal fan. I know Tim's the same way. I know Emilio's kind of like that. You get your guys, and then you don't ever want to see them leave. Like, right, we want them to have that. If we could all have our druthers, they'd be hanging up in the Ring of Honor. You know what I mean? They'd have their jerseys retired. They'd be here. The thing is it's a business, and especially nowadays with the cap situation and how much people are getting paid, and it's just not realistic that you're going to keep everybody. And honestly, like, I almost hope the best for some of these guys, because even if you look at a guy like Rasheed Walker, like you want them to go out and get their money. Like Tim talked about a couple episodes ago, these guys probably get one shot at getting like that. I'm going to pay my family. I'm not going to have to work for the rest of my life. I've worked my whole literal life in this career, if you want to call that a career, playing football, which it is. It's probably harder than anything I've ever done in my whole life. So for that type of mentality, I understand these guys, but like you said, I like the idea of letting him test free agency. I like the idea of him coming back and saying, hey, all right, that's your market rate. Okay, we'll give you maybe like a little bit of incentive, maybe a little bit more of like guaranteed money, with maybe the accommodation of, like you said, you guys know I've always loved the incentive based contracts. I wish that more of them were like that. Like, if it's kind of like my job here, your job, anybody's job. If you just are like, well, I'm going to be hurt for most of the year, they're like, all right, well, you're not going to get paid anything. Yeah. Which sucks, but it's like, that's the world, man. So, Jenkins is an interesting one. I think I saw a comment earlier, somebody saying how they kind of with Gary too, like, not necessarily like, I love Gary. I will never forget him breaking down emotionally, hugging his family, thanking the Green Bay Packers organization. I feel like that if anybody has been, I don't want to say done dirty or nothing like that, but he's done what you've asked him to his whole football career. He did that in Michigan when they were like, we need you to either set the edge, we need you to do this, we need you to do that. And he just says, yes, sir, no, sir. It just feels like that it is maybe time to move on. And that's kind of where I'm at. It's just whatever the front office seems to think is the best foot forward. I agree with it. And it would be nice to free up some cap space. And if it has to be a couple guys that fall on the sword, it sucks, but this is a business. The NFL, we always talk about, stands for not for long. It's very rare that a player spends their whole career with one team. I wish it was different, but it's just the way that the cookie crumbles,
Absolutely. Now, another name that's being mentioned here is Nate Hobbs. All right.
Yeah.
Nate Hobbs is 12.8 on the cap. His dead cap is $12 million. What's that mean? If you cut him outright, you're only freeing up $800,000. Okay. So to me, it's worth it to keep him. Now, if you go post June 1 cut, you got to carry that $12.8 million cap hit until June 1. However, Nate Hobbs and his post June 1 cut frees up $8 million, $8.8 million. So what you got to ask yourself is it worth it? Which would you rather have on the roster? Would you rather have Nate Hobbs on the roster, or would you rather have an extra $8 million in cap space? That's essentially what it comes down to. And not for this free agency post June 1 cut. I lean toward, let's give Nate Hobbs another shot here. Right. The only thing worse than signing him and whiffing on that and giving a bunch of guaranteed money, however much guaranteed money they got, which obviously the dead cap's just $12 million. So it wasn't a whole lot of guaranteed money, is now you take a bath with that. He's on the cap for $12 million. He's not on your roster. He goes somewhere else and balls out like Eric Stokes. That would suck, right? Now, Aaron Banks is different. 24.7, boys, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money, a lot of cap space. I would like to see, in a perfect scenario, a restructure of Aaron Banks, okay? Lower the cap number, take some of the money away, maybe give him a little bit more guaranteed money, keep him on the roster and get his number down to, say, 15 million, 12 million, something like that. But you may not be able to do it. You may just have to, accept the fact that you swung and missed on Nate Hobbs and Aaron Banks. That could have happened, right? And Goody's been good in free agency, in my opinion. Those two, not so much. He missed. Yeah. It is what it is. I get raked over the coals when I say that Goody does something good. I've got to make sure that I'm being honest when he does something bad and makes a mistake. And again, at the time, I wasn't going, this is a huge mistake. I'm going, Goody knows what he's doing. Well, now you got a reason to kind of step back and question it a little bit. Like, okay, we missed on this. But.
Yeah. I like what Chris the Trucker says here again. He goes, Hobbs will be a Packer, unfortunately. Just doesn't make sense nice, to cut him. I think he was a bad signing, but let's see if he can improve. What I will say about that, if I had my opinion, which again, thank God that I'm not a GM of an NFL team, I would cut bait with Banks and Hobbs. I didn't see it. I think the contracts were a little too spendy, but I'm a cheap SOB. You guys know that, right? So like if I can get back some money, I'm the worst gambler ever because I get scared. I'm like, just let me save a little bit more money and I'll take the money back that I think I can. So like, but the one thing I will say, when you see that post-season interview with Hobbs, he owned it. You remember? Like he said, I didn't play well. Next year, you're going to get the best version of Nate Hobbs that you can get. I think he maybe referenced that I, was playing through some injuries, that kind of thing.
He definitely was, Jacob. He didn't get it. Like he came into camp, flashed early, got hurt, and was not healthy all year.
And remember, they kind of got on him because he was a little too aggressive. You remember that?
Right.
Early. Right. And he, I don't want guys hitting our own guys in practice and all that kind of stuff, but I do want a couple psychopaths out there. And
another one too. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's just if we are possibly going to move on from Nixon or somebody like that, if we're going to move on from some of these guys that are thumpers, it's like I want somebody back there that's an absolute dog that's had time in the NFL. And like we talked about, like you just mentioned, I mean, we were all done with Eric Stokes. What happens? He goes to the frickin' Raiders, and he's literally one of the best ranking cornerbacks in the league for that year with substantial snaps. So.
Right. And, that goes back to what we talk about, draft and develop. Well, sometimes you draft these guys, you get the worst version of them, and then you let them walk because you want to stay young. You want to stay the youngest team. And now they finally get it. It clicks. They flourish. And then, lo and behold, you're back to square one. Let me give you an example. You guys remember Micah Hyde?
I was just going to say Micah Hyde.
Micah Hyde was a dog. Right? They told Micah Hyde, and Wildy reported this. He broke this because I think either Micah Hyde or his agent told Wildy this at the time. They told him mid-season, we're not bringing you back. And it's so rare that a team does that. It's like, why would you do that? Because they wanted to get younger. And he goes on to Buffalo and balls out. So this isn't the first time this has happened. And sooner or later, we got to start calling a spade and go, okay, maybe it's how the general managers are operating here in Green Bay. Maybe we need to take a little bit different approach, right? It seems like it's fair game to say that about Matt LaFleur, but it's not fair game to say that about Goody, which is kind of weird. Yeah. Yes, Chad Ink says, man, if we could have kept Hyde, it would have been awesome, right? Would have been absolutely awesome. So another name here is Keisean Nixon. And this is a name, when you bring up Keisean Nixon, people lose their mind. And I get it. That tape of him at the goal line was rough to watch. If that had not happened, where he just kind of stepped back and decided he wasn't going to tackle the ball carrier, keep him out of the end zone, if that had not happened and the personal fouls had not happened all year, I would be sitting here saying Keisean had a good year.
Yeah.
But the reality is the penalties happen. The biting on double moves, biting underneath on double moves when you got over the top priority in your assignment, that happened. And then on top of that, going into the season, I'm not returning kicks. I'm cornerback one. That actually happened. And then at the end of the season, his exit interview, what did he say to the media there after they cleaned out the locker? I hit all my goals this year. Yeah. Like, what are we talking? I'm sorry, man. It's just not there. Now, the number, if you removed all that, Jacob, I'd be okay with keeping him. $7.1 million is nothing. And the reality is, if you cut him, you only free up $2.1 million this year. And I don't know if there's a post-June or not. I'll take a quick check here. Keisean Nixon, post-June, $5 million. So you could get $5 million back post-June, or but actually it's probably the same number. It is roughly the same number, isn't it? Yeah, so it's the same number. So again, if all that had not happened, I'll be okay with keeping Keisean. But you got to change the culture in your locker room somehow, some way. Now, the other problem is we're talking about we don't want to go out with the youngest roster again. Keyshawn's 29 years old. If you cut him and you replace him with Keontae Scott, who we just drafted, guess what? Your roster just got younger, and more specifically at the cornerback position. So it's not – I don't want to come across, guys that are watching or listening to this later, I don't want to come across like, oh, this is an easy decision, because it's really not that easy. Because on one side, we're pointing out youth and inexperience is why we're collapsing down the stretch, and you can only get so far with that, especially with $90 million in cap space on the injury list, right? So something's got to give. You can't have it both ways. And I'm saying that to me, not anybody who's hearing my voice. I'm saying it to me like, all right, Clay, you don't want the youngest roster. Well, we've got to give on some of these veterans. You're going to have to keep one or two of them around if you don't want the youngest roster, because the reality is you're not just going to be able to go in free agency and just replace them with someone of equal age, right?
Well, isn't that another kind of point that you've made is being ourselves? We're kind of paying ourselves in a corner being the youngest roster, because then if we need to make roster moves, all of a sudden we're like, well, we can't cut the old guy, even though the old guy maybe needs to get cut. You know what I'm saying? Right. But like you just said, that's going to put us down again, right in that, if not the youngest, probably top three or bottom three, whatever you want to say. Right. that to me is just, again, and who does that reflect on? Did Matt LaFleur draft these guys?
Right. Exactly.
Did Bisaccia draft these guys?
Right.
Did you ask him to just take an unmolded ball of clay and just be like, make me a freaking beautiful work of art? It's just kind of, at one point you just, and I love Goody. I really do. I like Goody. I think he knows what he's doing in the most part, but I think he needs to tweak his vision a little. I'm just going to say it.
And maybe that's with Ed Policy, with the announcement of the extensions. He came out, I don't know if you've seen, but the comment that he made that stood out to me, Jacob, was he came out and said, we all sat down, we got on the same page about where we want to go, where we want to be. Maybe he made some tweaks to that. Maybe say, Goody, I want you to change this. Hey, Matt, I want you to change that a little bit, right? And I know there's some people that go, well, he has no right to say that. Okay, then why the hell is he the president? Just don't even have a president if you don't have someone at the top kind of seeing things from a little bit different level, even if it's from mostly a business perspective, like what he's done in Titletown and helped Mark Murphy do in Titletown. That's huge for business. It is. But still, you want someone who can give you an outside look rather than, all right, everybody just get in your tunnel here, get in your tunnel vision, and you just do what you think is right and don't listen to anyone else. That's crazy. That's why we got the structure we've got right now, because those silos popped up last time and all of a sudden the team was screwed, So anyway, we need to wrap up.
Chris says, man, I don't care if we save $2.50. Got Keisean yesterday.
Right. Let me tell you something, bro. You are not kidding. Like I just tried to sell myself on it, right? I gave you every reason why to keep Keisean Nixon, Chris, and I am still going, I don't want him. Like, it's time to move on, man. Yeah. Mike Witt agrees, right? I'd rather have a rookie than Nixon. We all know what Nixon is. His second half of the season was horrible. It was. And what's crazy is he still led the league in pass breakups. And you see that, and that's a cool stat.
That's crazy, yeah.
But why is he leading in pass breakups? Because he is no hesitation. First break, he's breaking on the ball. Now, what's the negative of that? Getting cooked on the double move. And we've seen that several times as well. So anyway, if you guys are watching this video back later on the salary cap, let us know, how do you feel about the salary cap situation? Which of these players would you cut loose? Which player would you like to restructure? Which player you may feel like Chris and just go, you know what, get him the hell off my team. I don't want him. Let us know in the comments. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so you don't miss out on future content, including live streams like this one, videos that we'll upload, and anything in between with breaking news. Make sure that you got that bell icon clicked.